microphone on. God, you think I would know to do this by now? I'll start again. Good evening, everybody, because then everybody online hopefully can hear me. It is Cabinet. It is the 14th of October. We are convening for tonight's agenda. So welcome, everybody. We have a not an overly long agenda, but some of it is in public and some of it isn't. And we will have some challenges tonight because a number of us, I suspect, may have interests we will need to declare as we go through the proceedings. So for those of you who join us regularly, you will see some slight changes this evening to our normal practice. And for those of you who are eagle-eyed, you will notice that we're not arranged in our normal seating positions because the council chamber is ready for full council for tomorrow. So let's move our way through tonight's agenda. So apologies. Do we have any apologies to note?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Howell.
Thank you. And I know that Councillor Wakeford is due to join us shortly. We had previously circulated the minutes from the meeting held on the 16th of September. So these have already been shared. Are there any amendments required? Councillor Davenport-Ray.
I think Councillor Sanderson was with us at that meeting, but he's not listed in the minutes. And also we had a presentation from Kirsty Drew, and I just had sent in advance a correction of how her name is spelled.
Thank you very much. Did we make those amendments?
Yes, those amendments have been completed, Chair.
Fantastic. So with those amendments completed, are you happy that I sign them as a true record of the meeting? Yep. Okay, thank you very much. I shall initial, and then I'll put a portrait on them. And an initial there. Thank you. Perfect. Right, in which case then we move to item 2. Now, unusually this evening, I think there will be a number of us needing to declare interests, mainly because of item 3 when we get to it. So I'll start us off because otherwise I might forget to declare my own interest. So I've already declared as part of my normal declaration that I'm a member of the English Civil War Society. So therefore, potentially I have an interest in item 4.6. It's not pecuniary, but the public may perceive that there is an interest. So I will leave the room when we get to that item. Who else has an interest that they need to declare, please? Councillor Kerr.
Agenda item 3, 4.3, St Ives Warner's Pavilion. I'm a member of the Town Council.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr, duly noted, and obviously you'll leave the room when we get to that particular item. Who else was signalling? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chair. I need to declare an interest under item 3, which relates to community infrastructure levy in relation to the KGV land cricket pavilion, as I'm a member of Huntingdon Town Council and they own that land. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's when we get to 4.7. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. I too have got an interest in item 3 under 4.7 for the KGV land because I'm the vice chair of the cricket club and I've been involved in some of the negotiations there. And I've also got an interest for item 4 because of the cricket club. However, item 5, although I haven't been involved in any discussions.
Thank you very much. Anybody else got an interest to declare? Councillor Wakeford. It's all right, we're going for a full house tonight about how many interests we need to publicly declare. Councillor Wakeford.
Thank you. May I say up front my apologies if I need to step away off camera. It's not a response to your chairing, and Councillor Sanderson has already commented about whether it's me or the 4-year-old I have in the public gallery who'd be making a more incisive contribution to this meeting, but I'm afraid it's me you've got. And I also need to declare an interest with respect to the same item, purely in terms of being a ward councillor covering Huntingdon, but I've had no involvement in that or other application discussions, so I propose to participate in debate as normal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's noted. In which case then, that's all of the interest. So we're going to do something rather unusual then at this point, because we're going to ask, as we move into item 3, we're going to ask Councillor Sanderson to introduce the item. And then we are going to hand the chair across to Councillor Ferguson, who has very gamely at no notice agreed to take the chair on my behalf. That means then that I can participate, but I will depart from the room when the item comes up that I've declared an interest in. For those of you who are watching on camera, you will also notice that other members who are part of this cabinet will depart for their declared items, and our 151 officer will dutifully go and call us back in one at a time when part of our item has been decided in our absence. So hopefully that makes sense to the public. It will be a most unusual meeting this evening, but one that is appropriate given the declarations that it is right that we make. So Councillor Sanderson, I'm going to hand across to you to open the item. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So really this paper just shows the results of the latest round of bidding for the community infrastructure spend allocation. I think members are probably already familiar with this. It helps to deliver across the priorities in the Council's corporate plan, specifically creating a better Huntingdonshire, really looking to unlock growth where we can. We'll look at some of the projects that have sort of listed in the introduction, A428, A141, not listed this evening, but some of the things that we've certainly considered in the past. So the latest funding round was launched on the 2nd of June, closing date of the 15th of August, a window of 11 weeks for submission. Bids received within that round for SIL funding have been assessed by the officers to reach the recommendations within this report, and I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the team for all their hard work in assessing all the data. And I think some of the changes that Cabinet have approved that have now taken place have actually led to a far smoother application process, particularly the pre-application forms really assisted. And I know speaking to the team, they've found that as well. So the outcomes of this round, they don't preclude applicants from submitting applications to future rounds, but the results are here. So I'll just briefly run through them. First being that we are recommending approval, officer recommendation approval at paragraph 4.2 to approve funding for the Huntingdon Campus Skills Training Facility. Agree officer recommendations at 4.3 to decline funding for Warners Park Pavilion, St Ives extension and refurbishment. Agree officer recommendations at paragraph 4.4, but to approve a lesser amount for funding for Kimbolton and Stoneleigh playgrounds. Kimbolton has actually had quite a lot of growth, and they will be getting some Section 106 funding, we anticipate, and some of that will be used to offset the amount if members decide to award it this evening. The item that I have, sorry, it's not the item I have an interest in, sorry, this is item F, the One Leisure St Ives to approve funding for a new 3G pitch. Item G to recommended to approve funding for Cromwell Museum Huntingdon expansion project. And item H, which I have an interest in, so I won't comment any further. So I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
So I'm officially handing the chairmanship over to Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Ferguson, knock yourself out.
Would anybody like to ask Councillor Sanderson any questions on any of the agenda or any of the recommendations? Councillor Davenport-Ray.
Hang on.
Sorry,
of which he's not got an interest in.
Yeah. Any questions of any of the recommendations which Councillor Sanderson does not have an interest in, which is several of them?
Councillor Sanderson, my question is more general about SIL funding. Reading the report reminded me of our infrastructure delivery plan. And so when we had our local plan was created, alongside it is this schedule of infrastructure that matches up where our strategic growth locations were going to be, like Alconbury Weald. And I think, so our current infrastructure delivery plan was written in 2017. The SIL bids that we're talking about tonight is one way that we keep up with our infrastructure. But is there some way that we monitor what we already had in the plan, and what levers can we use to try to deliver the infrastructure?
Okay, so thank you for the questions. So you're absolutely correct. Councillor Davenport-Ray is correct, Chair. So actually, as part of the local plan update, a new infrastructure delivery plan is being developed by working with all our infrastructure partners, and they'll continue to have site of allocations as the local plan progresses. So we regularly talk to things like the IDB, we talk to the county council, talk to Highways England, etc. So regularly in conversation with them. We're also going to look at an infrastructure delivery study baseline assessment that was actually completed in October 2025, and that's published as part of the local plan update evidence base that's on the website. But we're going to a stage 2 assessment, which we need to complete by spring 2026 as one of the key elements of evidence to support the local plan. And as you know, the timetable for that is to implement it by December 2026. So I hope that's helpful.
Any other questions? Okay, so we move on to recommendations. We have recommendations A to H, most of which we're going to take item by item, but recommendations A and B are to note the updates on delivery in relation to projects previously allocated or in receipt of SIL funding in Appendix 1. And recommendation B is to note any new allocated SIL projects for £100,000 or less approved by delegation on the 3rd of October 2025. Are we all happy to note those two items? Okay. Okay, so now we're going to have to begin our game of musical chairs. Recommendation C is to agree officer recommendations at paragraph 4.2 to approve funding for the Huntingdon Campus Skills and Training Facility. So any members who've have an interest? Do we have an interest in this one? No? Okay. So I'm happy to propose from the chair that we approve funding for the Huntingdon Campus Skills Training Facility. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Harvey, I think. Would anybody like to debate this item? If not, then we'll go to the vote. So all those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Recommendation D is to agree officer recommendations at paragraph 4.3 to decline funding for Warner's Park Pavilion and St Ives extension and refurbishment. I think Councillor Kerr has an interest here, so we'll wait for her to leave the chamber. So I'm going to propose from the chair that we decline funding for Warner's Park Pavilion, St Ives extension refurbishment. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Conboy. Would anybody like to debate this item? Yes, sorry, Councillor Conboy.
So only to say that I know officers continue to work really hard with applicants. So I know it's always disappointing if somebody gets a recommendation for a decline, but I'm really pleased that our officers have continued to work really hard with applicants who've previously been declined. So I hope that the feedback that officers will have given St Ives will be taken as useful feedback.
Agree. Anybody else like to take part in debate? If not, we'll go to the vote then. All those in favour of declining this application? That's also carried unanimously. Okay, recommendation E is to agree officer recommendations at paragraph 4.4 to approve a lesser amount of funding for Kimbolton and Stoneleigh playgrounds. Again, I'm going to propose this from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Conboy. Would anybody like to debate this? Councillor Davenport-Ray.
I just have a question that I wanted to ask before we vote, just to make sure my understanding is correct. So the lesser amount we're proposing reflects that Kimbolton has had significant growth, but Stoneleigh has not. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, I think you're probably correct in that. statement, as I said when I introduced it, of course, that there will be offset funding from some of the 106 contributions that will be made, and that will actually also enable potentially some other funding if they wish to, parish council wish to expand those facilities at some future date.
Councillor Wakeford.
Thank you. And it's probably worth us being clear that there's not a sort of direct relationship between growth having happened and then still, as it were, compensating for that. It's around enabling future growth and development and so on. So obviously these things are sort of correlated, and Councillor Sanderson's earlier answer is quite right, but it's probably helpful for us just to be clear about that there not being that linkage in terms of the framing of the question.
Okay then, so let's put it to the vote. We're voting to agree to approve a lesser amount of funding for Kimbolton and Stoneleigh playgrounds. Everybody in favour of awarding a lesser amount, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Recommendation F is to agree officer recommendations at paragraph 4.5 to approve funding for HDC 1 Leisure St Ives for a new 3G pitch. I'm happy to propose that from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sanderson. Would anybody like to debate this item? If not, then I'm happy to put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Recommendation G is to... We'll give you time to leave, Councillor Conboy. Recommendation G. We didn't find out what sort of reenactment Councillor Conboy is involved in as well. No, she's not in the room. So recommendation G is to agree officer recommendations at paragraph 4.6 to approve funding for Cromwell Museum Huntingdon's expansion project. I'm happy to propose that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Harvey would like to contribute to the debate. Councillor Wakeford.
Thank you. I think I saw an earlier nod from the top table, but I suppose for avoidance of doubt, just to unpack on this item, clearly as portfolio holder for the Market Towns project, I have been involved in supporting the museum in previous efforts in order to obtain funding to get in a position where it could then compete for funding from other sources, not least from us and beyond. I haven't had any involvement in this particular bid. I'm under the impression that I'm content with that, and that there's not advice to the contrary in terms of my involvement in this debate. But I just felt it helpful to spell that out. I've supported getting it into a position where it could be in a strong position for applications, but that's not predetermination with respect to this particular one.
Do we have to take advice from the monitoring officer or not? No? Happy with that? Yeah, I think we're happy with that. Councillor Davenport-Ray.
I think on this similar topic that Councillor Wakeford's just mentioned, I have in my memory some funding that this particular museum received from us recently. Councillor Sanderson, can you tell us more about how that's different than what's proposed this evening?
I'll certainly be glad to answer this one. So, Councillor Davenport-Ray, Chair, is absolutely correct. There was funding from this council previously agreed in relation to this project. That was in relation to phase 1, which involved the preparation of concept designs and undertaking and due diligence in order for the acquisition of a new building, which is the other side of the market square, not far from the Falcon. And that sits in a very prominent position on the market square, and that funding enabled that to go ahead. And this funding had been agreed from the CPCA with HDC under the Market Town programme. So the phase 2, which is what we're being asked to look at this evening, this is to support repair and renovation of that building, which was acquired under phase 1, in order to create a new museum, including a cafe, toilets with changing rooms and a gift shop. So sounds like a very good project. Thank you.
Okay, so let's put that to the vote then. Are we happy to agree officer recommendations to approve funding for Cromwell Museum Huntingdon expansion project? All those in favour? That's also unanimous. We'll wait for Councillor Conboy to rejoin us.
Pop them here.
And for Councillors Harvey and Sanderson to leave the chamber because they have interests. So the final recommendation is recommendation H, to agree officer recommendations at paragraph 4.7 to approve funding for the King George V Pavilion Huntingdon redevelopment. I'm happy to propose that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Conboy. Would anybody like to debate this item? If not, then we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? And that's also carried unanimously. And I'm happy to hand the gavel back to you, Councillor Conboy.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Excellently chaired, and well done to councillors for departing. And thank you very much to Suzanne for making sure that people reappeared on cue. We move now to item 4, which is the exclusion of the press and public. This is to resolve that the press and public be excluded from the meeting because the business to be transacted contains exempt information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. So at this point, we say goodbye to those who've joined us online this evening. Also, we need to take a vote. Thank you very much. I'll get a little ahead of myself. So I'll propose it from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Kerr. All those in favour? Thank you, in which case we are going to say goodnight to those of you who've joined us online and in person. Thank you very much, and we will conclude the last part of tonight's agenda. Thank you.